I'm Luke Story. For the past 22 years, I've been relentlessly committed to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of spirituality, health, psychology, and personal development. The Lifestylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you.
All right.
That was some good water. Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Oh, man, I'm fucked.
Alive spring water. I told you, dude. Once you try it, there's no going back.
Yeah.
It's a funny experiment, actually. You can take take a glass of the Alive spring water and then take a glass of like some, what we would think is decent bottled spring water, like Mountain Valley or Starkey or whatever. Put them in the refrigerator and then put on an eye mask and see if you can taste the difference. And you'll taste the difference immediately. I mean, it's not even, there's no question. Yeah, it's just really good.
Smooth.
And funny thing about it being smooth, and this might be a totally unplanned but good place to start. I'm a water geek, right? And what I'm always looking for is spring water that's ideally coming through rocks that are really dense, hard rocks. So like a granite mountain versus, a limestone hill, right? And in the world of spring water connoisseurs, you're always going for the lowest TDS or total dissolved solids because of, just the taste of the water, that kind of lime scale that gets on your pot. If you boil some spring water, you'll see like this chalky stuff. And those of us that think we know why we don't want those minerals, this is what I always say, and I want to see if this is true. I hope it is because I always talk about it. If I'm getting, say, like a kind of what I would consider a swaggy spring water from low altitude, soft rocks, and it picks up tons of minerals like calcium, and I'm getting that chalky scale on something when I cook with that water, my thought has always been that those are inorganic minerals and are basically dissolved rocks that have not been metabolized by a plant or an animal in any way, and essentially it's like eating very fine, very, very, very fine dust of a rock that your body doesn't have the capacity to use, which could lead to things like calcification, calcium deposits going in places where you don't want it, your joints and stuff like that. So we're going to get fully into minerals here, but what do you think of my thesis on why low mineral water is actually ideal for a daily drinking water?
I think that's good. Yeah. That's about how I've thought about it as well, when naturally derived. So, yeah. Certainly the deposition in joints is something to think about. And if it's going to deposit that easily there, it's probably not as easily utilized as the portions that are in solution. So,
got it.
Yeah, not 100% certain of that, but pretty sure. Like reasonably very confident.
Okay,
so,
that makes sense. So when we're talking about, I just did a solo show about water filtration and stuff, so it's all kind of top of my head. But obviously, I know you kind of share the perspective of ancestral health as the goal, right? So like what can we do to reverse time, basically, of our de-evolution, devolution, I think they call it. So we would have been drinking water around the world as, an emerging population that did have some minerals in it. And so then we added all these toxins to water. And so now we use reverse osmosis, for example, as a means by which to get out of the chemicals and heavy metals and stuff. But when we do that, then we're stripping the water of all its minerals. So I've been in the habit when I use a water purification system like the AquaTrue of then taking like some Quinton mineral solutions like seawater and even sometimes just sea salt and things like that to bring some minerals back into the water. Do you think that's a wise strategy?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, we, when we're doing RO, I'm sure like you've talked about on the show is, we're stripping it of, any nutrients that would be available. It's essentially lab grade water at that point, and the body's not going to do well with that. I would say that's most likely stripping to ingest. You want to be adding things back into that, and that could sit. You could do it immediately. Maybe it sits overnight. But that's what I do at home. I do RO, and then I remineralize it.
Oh, okay.
So
that was not supposed to be the beginning of my conversation. So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you
Sure.
the thing that came to mind when you walked in, because I haven't seen you in a while. We run into each other socially here and there and catch
Yeah.
up. What's new in your life? What's exciting right now for you?
Man, I'm about to go to Brazil and Colombia for, probably 6 weeks or so, something like that. So I'm looking forward to the creativity boost that always comes with traveling and adapting to a new place and a new language. My Spanish is shaky. My Portuguese, I've been just learning it, a week ago. So a lot of challenges for sure. So that'll be fun. Meeting up with a few friends on the road. Haven't been out of the country for more than about 3 weeks at a time ever. So it'll be a good thing. And then I'll be coming back and maybe speaking at PaleoFX. And
Oh, nice.
we're going to have a booth there. So
Oh,
if anyone's there, they can
perfect.
swing by.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that because one of my favorite things about these conferences, and I'll probably plug my appearance at PaleoFX in the intro for this show,
Yeah.
but I love when I'm there and brands that I love and like the brains behind brands like you were there, and then listeners of the podcast come.
Yeah.
And I'll go hang out at the booth, and they're like, "Oh, this is that thing you talked about, the minerals with that one guy." I'm like, "Yeah, this is the guy," So it's cool because listeners, I get to meet them, and also they get to meet so many of the different people that I interview because anyone in the kind of physical health space is typically going to be presenting at these health conferences as well.
Yeah.
So Brazil,
It's a great event too.
It is. PaleoFX is awesome, and it's right down the street, 20
Yeah.
minutes from my house, which is good.
Yeah.
25. Congrats on your trip.
Thanks.
Brazil's one of my favorite places in the world. Incredible people there. Yeah, I've been to just Sao Paulo and Rio, mostly Rio. I think three or four times.
Yeah.
Are you single?
I am.
Okay, I would not recommend going to Brazil as a guy if you're not single. I mean, just people in general there are beautiful. I mean, in Rio, it's just, I don't know what they're eating down there, like what the mixture of different ethnicities is, but man, Brazilian people are just fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun place.
Hopefully I bring back a few of those secrets. Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably like a lot of sun close to the equator.
Yeah, that, that's got to be a lot of it. And just great DNA. That, and then we have a really good electrolyte product out now. Well, it's not out. Maybe by the time this airs it will be, but it's, it's in the warehouse now at this point. So,
oh, nice.
Cool.
That's funny because that was one of my questions. So for those listening, you're gonna learn more about this, but you got a company called Upgraded Formulas, and very innovative method of delivering minerals, which is your stuff is out of control. So good.
Thank
you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But one of my questions was, I think of electrolytes as just types of minerals. What's the difference between electrolytes and minerals? Like you already have all these minerals that you guys make and sell that are awesome. Yeah. What's the difference between that and like an electrolyte mix?
Yeah, so such a great question. I mean, ultimately, we have our upgraded magnesium, upgraded potassium, for example. Those are electrolytes, right, for people listening. So you can take those by themselves. They're electrolytes. Add in some sea salt. You've got chloride and sodium, and you pretty much got it covered. Not too many people. There's very few people that we see when they do a hair analysis with us that need calcium. There are some, but it's pretty few in number because it's so ubiquitous in the diet. So electrolytes, they carry a charge, so it could be positive, could be negative. Not all minerals. Some are neutral. If you're bound in food, it's usually a neutral charge because there's other things happening in the food. So, yeah.
Someone told me once that if you were to fill a bathtub with distilled water and throw a plugged-in hairdryer in it, that the person would not be electrocuted because there's no minerals or electrolytes in the water. What do you think of that?
Wow.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just to illustrate the point of like, this is what minerals and electrolytes do. They're conductive, or if that is actually true. I thought that was interesting.
That most likely, at least in theory, would be true. to perfectly execute that, I don't know. But,
Right, because there could be, like, if you're in a metal tub or a ceramic tub, there could be
Mhm.
minerals lining
Yeah.
it, right? It would
Yeah.
have to be plastic or something.
Yeah.
Like, there couldn't be
Non-conductive.
one mineral in the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, I think I just brought that up.
That's a great sort of, Newtonian or non-Newtonian. Yeah, it's a great question. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just, and we'll get into the nature of minerals, but I think most of us don't tend to think of them as like conductive elements, right?
Mm-hmm.
That that's part of their mechanism of action.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get into it. Out of all the things that experts in the health space get into, which some people are a hormone person, the other person's into detoxing, etc. Everyone's got their specialty,
Mm-hmm.
and I think minerals are something that we sort of discount because it's like, oh yeah, you got to get your vitamins and minerals.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like
fruits and vegetables.
yeah, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? But from knowing you and the work that you do, minerals are like way, way, way more important than we all think. So how did you get interested in minerals, and how did you arrive at your
Mhm.
passion for them specifically?
Yeah, I really had to. I realized it was an area of real concern when I started looking at my hair analysis, my mother's hair analysis. I was born to older parents and always had this fear of losing them. We were close as a family growing up, and I had two sisters that were older, and but there was a big gap. So it was kind of me and my parents grew up in the, picture the middle of nowhere, picture the middle of that, and you're on to a good start. And they were great, and because they were such great parents, I didn't have that normal angst, and losing or what seemed like starting to lose my mother was really difficult, traumatic, and I was just looking for solutions, and my own health was starting to mentally, at least, my focus was just getting worse and more spacey and less dependable, more and more, and it went from frustrating to concerning to, oh my God, on different days. And I did a lot of functional medicine tests on myself, my girlfriend at the time, her dad, my mom, and what we found was the most interesting test that seemed to be the most actionable was this hair analysis. And luckily had an incredible consultation with this guy that's now retired, and learned a ton from him, and then quickly applied like the depth of thinking that I got in chemical engineering to that whole world. And this is where we start to get on the path to where we are now. And I remember thinking, so how is it that I've been taking a bunch of these minerals for a year and a half or more, and I'm deficient in them? And she's been taking them for like 3 months. I've pretty much put everyone on a regimen, even prior to this, for 3 months. Okay, maybe it's quality, maybe it's a brand or something. We'll try it, or we'll change a form or something. And like after about a year of that, I realized like nothing was really changing. Our levels weren't really moving much, and the symptoms were staying as a result. And I learned a lot.
When you're saying just pardon the interruption, when you're saying you're taking minerals, you're taking like powdered capsules of whatever they were.
I tried everything. We were doing liquids of different types. We were doing powders. We were doing capsules.
Did you ever try these liquid ionic minerals? Was that ever part of the?
Yeah. We were trying some of those. We're doing different drops and trace minerals as well, and different things like that. And still,
your test came out with you guys being deficient.
Wasn't finding a lot of improvement from anything at the time, at least. And I thought, well, there's a real problem here, and it seems like across n equals like 4, there's not a whole lot of difference and change, and we had an age diversification there too. But I was thinking, I mean, just what I got trained in school, so that main lens was that, and that was absorption and the thermodynamics of it and the physics of it, the chemistry of it, and then had to take all that sort of theoretical knowledge and do something really practical with it, which is, here you go, Luke. here's your first project. You have to take this industrial project and make it, vastly more effective as an end product. And maybe it's a huge distillation tower. Maybe it has some nanotechnology equipment attached to it. Maybe it's maybe the end product is an ethanol byproduct, something like that. So yeah, that's where I started thinking about this and noticing, oh, this is a real issue. And wow, also a couple things immediately. Going to need a solution to this. Seems like one isn't readily available, unless I'm totally missing something. And then, from there it was just, okay, she's getting worse. I'm not getting any better, and just being really clear on, if you're not healthy, you're not going to have the energy to pursue your goals, and having big plans for life and going, going to need the energy. And I'd been supplementing since I was 12 or 13 because, among other sports, I wrestled, and you can't just eat anything, right? You have to make weight. You have to make weight. So I think probably by the time I was in second or third grade, I realized, can't eat the Snickers bar and then perform well at practice. Like, doesn't work, and like, wow, I felt terrible, So and that was pretty unheard of in the late 90s to say something like that and go, oh, food. And, I felt pretty off, like non-optimal. So some of these things became pretty intuitive. And I think because of that sport in particular, I had this really tight feedback loop where I could eat something, and have a felt sense of, oh, I feel great, or, oh, I don't feel great. So that I had that aspect. I had the experience. I had about 10 years of supplementing and trying different things, a lot of guinea pig stuff and reading stuff. And then got into working out and kind of a slight bodybuilding phase. Not really, nothing like competing or anything, but all of this led to nutrient deficiencies, like sweating that much at practice, football too, all these different things. And then the worst mistake I ever made was going on Vyvanse in college, just optionally.
What is that?
It's chemically similar to Adderall.
Okay.
Which is chemically similar to meth, essentially.
Yeah, I've heard.
It's terrible. And it causes, just like alcohol or so many other things, it causes mineral deficiency. Sugar does too. So all these things that we, are kind of told to, hey, stay away from. Like, these are pretty addictive things, whether it's alcohol or cocaine or Adderall. They cause nutrient depletion, whether maybe it's from a pH standpoint, or it's just a different mechanism in the body where your adrenals are just firing constantly, which can also happen in things like ayahuasca and plant medicines, and where your body's you're in an elevated state, right? Your palms are sweating, your whole endocrine function is sped up, your whole system is firing. So.
What's a chemical engineer do? And if that's what you were educated in, if you hadn't got into helping people by creating these supplements, would other job options be like making weird chemicals for DuPont that give babies cancer in Arkansas because it gets in the water or something?
Yeah.
I know what I'm kind of joking,
Sure.
but what's the spectrum of good versus evil of a chemical engineer? What can it be used for as a career?
I think this is what the good side looks like, and then the negative side looks really similar to what you just said, which is, hey, what happens when we tack on another chain of carbons and OH groups or something to this particular molecule? How do we make this either cheaper or more ubiquitous or something? A higher, cleaner output, where you're really given a process and your goal is to improve it from an efficiency standpoint, from a cost standpoint, or from both, using whatever technology is available.
So when you look at the periodic table of elements, or you look at different molecules, you know how to read that language from your education. So you can look at a molecule and it's like, oh, we take an electron here and the proton here and all those things. I mean, I look at that stuff and I was like, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll look at something like DMT and you go, oh, it has this little shape and that little one. And then a chemist basically figures out, oh, you can take this little one, delete this part and connect it with this, and you have a new novel molecule. So how did that understanding of chemistry lead you into what seems like you discovered a new way to manufacture minerals that are much more bioavailable because they're so freaking tiny? What was like the moment of realization where your education helped you to do something unique and innovative?
Yeah, that was I don't know if you've ever woken up in the middle of the night and had like intense clarity on something you've been working on for a while. But that's how it was. I was here in Austin at the time. I woke up and it was like 3 a.m. And I was just, oh, I got it. Okay, cool. And the piece really was the particle size. It needs to be a lot smaller. Like it needs to be able to. The whole thought was, well, the end point of digestion. The question I've been asking was, if we digest well, because I was thinking, oh, I've got issues, things like that. And this, 10, 12 years ago, throughout this process, I remember thinking, what's the end result of digestion that goes well? And it's that nutrients get into the bloodstream. That's what it seemed like the answer was. So I was like, well, how do we improve that? And it's what became really clear was the particle size is not in our favor, and we could deliver that to the body and take some stress off the body and just make it a lot easier. Because although I think it's a valiant pursuit and totally worth our time to do all the things you talk about on the show, improving gut health is really so multifaceted, right? And although we should continually be working towards that, the soil's depleted. We have just so much that we're up against that if we could improve that even a little bit, I realized it would make a tremendous difference.
So in terms of the size, because I wish I had like a whiteboard here we could do some drawings, but let's just say for those listening that aren't even seeing the video, okay, let's say I have a basketball and that's the size of a human cell where we're trying to get nutrients into and get metabolic waste out of, right? So if we have a basketball here, how big is a molecule of magnesium or calcium or boron or something that I would get in a supplement pill or something like that in a synthetic form?
It's normally about 8 times larger. It might be as small as like about 5 times larger.
So if a basketball is a cell, how big is it? A tennis ball? Or
it would be like 5 times larger than that cell.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 times larger than the cell? So we're trying to get something that's larger than a cell into a cell?
Well, prior to digestion,
Oh, okay, okay. And then when your body metabolizes it, then it's small, like micronized, I guess you'd say, and small enough to get into the cell. Okay. Now, with the upgraded formulas, because you have these little drawings on your site and stuff, and they're like, here's a cell, here's a mineral, and here's our minerals, and it's like, 1 iota. It's this tiny little dot. So if we have a basketball and you used your chemical engineering degree to figure out how to shrink the hell out of minerals, cells of basketball, pre-digestion, how big are the molecules in your stuff?
So they're about 1,000 times smaller
than a cell. And a raw mineral is about 5 times bigger.
Yeah.
Wow. And has anyone else managed to figure that out?
I don't know.
To your awareness?
I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah.
Because when you explained it to me the first time I met you, I'm like, I've never heard of anyone doing that. I mean, especially when I'm a visual person, so when I see the visual, I'm like, wait, what the hell? So how about, say I'm eating a food, I'm eating grass-fed liver, and it's really high in copper.
Yeah.
Are those copper molecules in that liver still much bigger than a cell?
Yes. Yeah.
Until I digest them.
Right.
And then they become are they 1,000 times smaller once I digest them, or do we even know?
I don't think we know.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is stuff. Only God knows the answers to
Yeah,
this.
I don't know.
But, we can assume that if we digest and metabolize that copper in that grass-fed liver, which I highly recommend people eat,
Right.
myself included, remember, Lou?
Yeah, I know.
Thank God they have the capsules now, because it's atrocious stuff to eat.
Right.
But let's say, okay, eat that liver and it's got that copper that I want, but then the body has to break it down. And then how much of that are we actually going to absorb, because so much energy is spent, and I would assume so much is kind of wasted in the process of metabolism and digestion.
Yeah. Yep. We have a lot against us there. In addition to what nutrition is in the food, then we have stomach acid. So what's the stomach acid like? And, have you been, like most people, eating and eating and eating, and there's a backup of digestion and a lowering of stomach acid. So that can be very problematic as well.
Because you need the chemical soup in your GI tract to actually do the heavy lifting to extract that stuff. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
and
And
stomach acid is an epidemic. I wish I could just solve stomach acid for people, and I don't know.
To get people to produce more?
Yeah, stronger acids. It's usually too basic.
They could stop drinking alkaline water for starters. People always ask me about these freaking Kangen machines. I'm like, we already talked about that 7 years ago, 15 years ago. I got one of those things. Yeah, I'm not a fan of alkaline water.
No, me either.
There doesn't seem to be. I can't find any valid science behind it. And again, going back to nature, even if you go to a really high mineral spring, the minerals will make the water more alkaline. Even if you go to a really high mineral spring, it's usually not over 8 something. You're not getting like 11 pH water out of a mountain anywhere,
No, and it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it either has no effect or it has an incredibly small effect, it seems like. So
it seems if you wanted to change your blood pH, if you feel like you're too acidic, that breathwork would be a much faster way to do it.
100%. Yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I feel like I'm asking you too much stuff that you agree with.
Well, we are very, we have a lot of alignment, and I do completely agree. I'm doing as many days in a row as I possibly can in a month. I'm shooting for 30 days in a month of breathwork habit, doing it intense.
Dude, I was doing great with that for many, many months living here, and all it took was just a couple days of falling out of the habit, and now I can't get back. I would do it here and there, but I was every morning, non-negotiable. Breath work, then meditate. I mean, I still meditate because I would be a complete maniac if I didn't, but the breath work, man, really is a life-changing practice, but it does require that discipline. No one can do it for you. It's not in your supplement cabinet. You got to sit there and do the physical work involved in doing it.
Yeah, with meditation, I find that that's also really key for this conversation because it lowers your burn rate too. Yeah, it really does.
Explain burn rate.
So burn rate would be if we're incredibly stressed and we're all hyped up on our favorite nootropics, our burn rate's increased. If we're really stressed out, our burn rate's certainly increased. If we're high on MDMA, either in a healing scenario or in a party scenario, which might also be healing, we're also increasing our burn rate. And that's why I really believe we should be doing minerals before, during, and after in all of those situations.
When you're going to go do a ceremony or party or something? Yeah. I always bring your magnesium with me, actually, because it's so instantaneous, Yeah. I feel bad talking about magnesium because one of our advertisers makes a fantastic magnesium product. Probably won't be on this show, particular episode, but whatever magnesium I have around, I am taking a shitload of that. If I'm going to be in neural inflammation and stress, that burn rate thing is real, dude. Today when I texted you, hey, can we do later? Extremely stressful day. The first thing I did when I walked in the kitchen before coming here was take a magnesium.
Yep.
I'm just like, I know I just burned through a week's supply in a 4-hour disaster that I was dealing with.
I will fly home from Brazil if I don't have it with me. Like or I'll make sure we ship some plenty. I always have it with me, whether it's a scenario like that where jaws are tight or something like that. Cramps, we'll knock a cramp out in 3 to 5 minutes. Things like that. It's how it's really working.
Does your magnesium, and I know you can't make medical claims, but just magnesium in general,
sure.
Do you think since it's so good for muscle cramps, it would work for menstrual cramps?
Yes, and it at least ours really does.
Okay, cool. So you made a claim. Great. Okay.
Yep. I've seen it firsthand.
We at least have this on Telegram if we get in trouble for because I always
I've seen it firsthand.
I recommend it to women in my life, but I don't ever like go back to them and be like, hey, did the thing work? You know, I think oftentimes if you're having a discomfort and then you fix it, you forget that you fixed it or how you did it, right? So, and I forget to ask that person, hey, are you feeling better? I just made you a big magnesium drink or something. But it's like your abdominal wall are muscles that are cramping just like you would get a Charlie horse. So not being a woman, I don't know what it's like, but I have a sense that it would work that way.
Yeah, your period should not be, if you're a woman listening to this, your period should not be painful. And cramping is one way, just like a headache, that we're communicating with the body's communicating with us that, hey, there's something wrong and we need to address this. I need your attention here right now, type thing. Michelle Norris, we're together, me, her, Keith, a bunch of other people. She had a really bad leg cramp. I gave her some of our upgraded magnesium. It stopped in a couple of minutes. And it was like a tear rolling. I mean, it was bad.
Wow.
And she's tough. She's really tough. So that's, and I've 2 different women that I've dated have had PMS cramps. I'm like, hey, here you go. Like a lot of women, they've suffered with it for so long that they won't even like say anything unless you're like really perceptive. You're like, hey, you doing okay? What's wrong? And so it definitely makes a difference. And if you can absorb it really well and quickly, then it's really going to help. So I feel that way. I mean, it's very much an emergency sort of supplement that people can be temporarily low in too. So I've induced deficiencies just from doing a really heavy workout, like what we've done at ARX and stuff together, stuff like that. Pushing super hard. Wake up in the middle of the night, man. I've got essentially restless legs. It feels like ants are crawling on my ankles and calves, and it's a pain that I woke up. I should have taken more, but take some and stops. Go back to sleep. I'm able to catch up on my sleep. Maybe I sleep an extra hour than I would have, but my day's not ruined, which it really, I mean, no question it would have been. And I remember thinking when that happened, I was like, wow, this is scary. And I had helped solve that for my dad with the supplement. I remember, because he's almost 80 now. He's in good health, but I remember telling him, like, hey, you like this medication. You didn't always need this medication. You didn't always have this issue. Think about how, in terms of a level or a bar graph, it's as if that just got lower and it went beyond the threshold, and now you have this symptom that is letting you know, thankfully, in this area that's less important than your heart. For example, if the heart can't relax, we start to get into some really dangerous areas. And if someone has a heart attack, what do? Well, they rush you in, intravenous magnesium.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! I didn't know
calms
that.
the heart. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the heart's a muscle, dude.
Yeah, I know, right? And
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So with everything that we can take exogenously now, all these different great supplements and things like that, I still find myself thinking, well, like, what if you just want to be natural? Like a natural person doesn't need to do anything. You're just automatically healthy. And then I kind of go back, and it seems like a lot of this, I think you even mentioned soil. I think a lot of it seems to have to do with the fact that due to really ignorant farming practices and just having a lack of foresight into the consequences of humans' actions, that we've wrecked the soil and depleted it of nutrients to the point where we have to then put all these fake nutrients in to get it to grow. And so the animals you eat or the plants you eat aren't as mineral rich as they once were. Is there any truth to that? I mean, has anyone documented that? Like, hey, in 1922, the soil had this much copper and manganese or whatever. Now it has less. I mean, is this a real thing?
Yeah, in 1940, we had somewhere between 60 and 80% more. 60 or 80 years ago, so like 1940, is when the study was. There was, between then to now, there's a reduction of approximately 40% less nutrients. Now, I forget where that soil study was done and what region it was, but I think that's a good sort of thing to have in the mind. And you can taste that. You know, I was up in Oaxaca, in the mountains of Oaxaca, and I ate a banana. And I ate two. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm like full. Like I wasn't starving, but it's so nutrient dense is what I figured. And I looked at the soil when we were up there at like 8,000 feet. And we're doing a mushroom trip, actually, and they're just legal there. Bought them for everyone's credit card, you know. It's great.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. And the soil, but the soil was reddish purple. And I remember thinking, all right, the mushrooms have, you know, not kicked in yet. And I'm just looking at the soil, and it's like, this is reddish purple. I wish I tried to take a picture, and it's like, it's not coming out. The light, there's not enough light, but it was so nutrient dense, it looked like a different planet. And they have about 300 vegetables there, which is an insane number, right?
Wow.
And that's where, you probably know this, where mushrooms were rediscovered in the 50s, was there. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you think about, I just like knowing how things are made, right? If you think about, okay, what is soil? It's essentially rocks that have been eaten by microorganisms that have then rendered those rocks into what we would just call soil or dirt, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's all of the worms and the fungi and all the things that are in there in that living soil. We don't realize, I think, soil is actually alive. And it's almost like people think of compost, right? Compost seems very enzymatic and alive, and it's got a smell, and it breathes when it's cold and all this, right? It's steamy and all this. Mm-hmm. But I think we just think of soil as just like, it's just some dirt you scrub off your boot when you come inside, you know. But soil is like this living thing where these little wizards, these microscopic wizards, take rocks and turn them into essentially food for plants, and then the plants can do a bit more of that, and then animals eat those plants. So it's like you have sort of three processes, you know, if you're eating the end product of being an animal, that is, you have three major biochemical processes going on to turn a rock that we're all floating around on into something that can go into your cell and build your body. It's crazy.
That's exactly how I think of that too. And you know, we tend to forget that we are just a collection of this periodic table, and you know, we ignore testing those levels at our own peril, really, is what I realized about 12 years ago. And it's just become more and more true ever since.
So one of the cool things that you guys do, and I think this is going to be hopefully a huge trend and innovation in the supplement industry, is where you have a company that has products to optimize your health or fix issues that you're having, but they also provide the test.
Yeah.
So you can do, like, before you start getting the stuff, take the stuff and then test afterward to see if it actually got into your body and it's doing any good. Because sometimes the effects can be, you know, not necessarily discernible. There's so many other variables. You could just be happier, like you just got married or, you know, got promoted at work and you're super stoked and you think you're feeling better because of that, but it was also this magnesium you took or whatever, right?
Right.
But when you see it, I'm like really into the testing, because when you see it, then it gives you that information before and after whatever intervention you decided to implement, but it makes it more real, and for me makes it much more actionable.
Yeah.
And we're going to go over, I don't unfortunately have my test here yet because I was late doing it, but I have Allison's test here, and I got her permission. I said we could talk about it. But I'm like, when I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, we need to fix this. We need to fix this. We need to fix this. And then I want to do that and then go back later and be like, ha ha, all those ones in the red. See you guys watching the video. All those in the red are now in the green. I win. There's like, I think the discipline that lifestyle changes and choices require, the compliance, that's what
consistency.
The consistency and the compliance for me is greatly assisted by having quantitative evidence of what I want to work on. So
yeah, it's huge.
With that, how did you discover the hair mineral analysis? I know this is something I've been hip to for a while, kind of in the alternative health scene. It's quite common. But what was your first experience of that?
Yeah, first experience was with this, I guess, naturopathic doctor of sorts who just seemed to just have this encyclopedic knowledge now that I would say really all of our nutritionists have too, where they can link a symptom and they'll look at someone's test results, they'll ask questions, and they'll guide them through. So they'll say, so Luke, it looks like your magnesium levels are really low here in relationship to other minerals. So specifically, not just that they're low, but compared to calcium or sodium, it's really low. The ratios matter more than the individual levels. So that's one.
Wait, say that again. That's really important.
It is really important.
I never thought about that. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm low on zinc. Take more zinc.
Yeah. So that's kind of like level one. You can get some improvement from that, and then beyond that, it's all right. So let's say you're incredibly deficient in copper, and your iron levels are also low. Like, the solution isn't necessarily to take more iron. It might be to take both. It might be to take actually more copper, and that might have you overall feeling better. And it's just a case-by-case thing. And a good consultation will, in any test, I really believe, is a mix of asking you questions about lifestyle and intake of certain things that would be related to this, and also addressing the test, but not just basing recommendations off of a test. And that's where consultations go wrong in any area, I believe. Certainly hair analysis, because you'll have certain elements, and a lot of people aren't trained to read this very well. And I think that's why a lot of people stay away from it, is because they didn't do a good job providing feedback for someone and an actionable roadmap, because there are these conflicting things. So, for example, your sodium could be high on the test, and your potassium could be high. Those two elements, for example, maybe are artificially high because your body's preserving them because you have such a low intake of them. And couple that with the fact of we have some complete backward notions thanks to paid things like sugar industry realizing that, you eat less salt, you crave more sugar. And like now people
Is that where the like salt give you a heart attack?
Yeah.
Things?
Yeah.
These bastards.
That's false.
There is so much fake news in the food industry.
Yeah.
Freaking FDA.
And that has killed people and is killing people, unfortunately.
And here I am laughing about it.
No,
that was before I knew it killed people.
No, I know.
They're just diabolical. The whole low fat thing. I remember in the 80s, when I was a kid, I guess, and a teenager, it's like everything's low fat, and come to find out, like, fat is awesome if it's the right kind and not, canola oil fat or something.
Yeah. I think laughter is the appropriate response because it helps us kind of go like, oh man, like kind of keep our distance, because it's either that or just like sheer anger, which is like going to reduce our clarity of thought and everything and reduce our options. I always ask myself that as a way of like staying calm does getting upset about this increase my options? It almost never does.
Yeah.
So that's just a little feedback mechanism that is helpful, I think.
So going back to the hair mineral analysis, how does it work?
Yeah.
I could go get a blood test and be like, hey, tell me how much potassium's in my blood, or heavy metals. The test you do also test for heavy metals, which is super terrifying and awesome at the same time. What's different about the hair? Do these I mean, I guess heavy metals are technically minerals too, right?
Yeah,
They're
elements.
elements, right? So we just delineate them by these are good for you, these are bad
Yeah,
for you, kind of.
sure.
But do they get like stuck in your hair? And I know, like, when you do your hair test, you cut it very close to not you, but
Yeah.
the person getting their own hair cuts it very close to the scalp, I'm assuming, to get the latest kind of reading.
Sure.
So give us the breakdown on hair mineral. God, I can't say that word.
Mineral analysis.
Today's show is about minerals, and I can't say minerals.
Yeah. No, that's a great sort of starting point, really. So, and for people listening, if you shave your head, then you can take care from other areas on your body. Ideally, underarm or pubic would be the next best options.
I'm glad I don't work in the lab where you open those envelopes.
Yeah. They're like, oh, this one's checked pubic. Great. Can't wait to open this one. You know?
Joe, it's your turn.
Yeah, it's suddenly lunch break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. So, yeah, the way it works is you want to have it close to the scalp because that's the freshest data, right? So, if and you can do this like tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to go have a haircut, and I'll have the woman I go to. She knows the deal. She's going to take a sample for me, and I have some ideas about future plans with that too for the company. But we're constantly looking at ways to make this easier for people.
Dude, you could have like designated, barbershops or I like it.
So
I'm gonna drop scissors and scotch. It's a little chain, like a men's barbershop where I go over here in town.
Yeah, that's a great. I might have a conversation with them.
Cool.
So the way we look at it is, we take that 1.5 inch or less closest to the scalp. So if your hair is that 1/4 inch long, fine. It's even more recent. And it takes something like 6 to 8 weeks for the average person to grow about 1 inch of hair. So that's about how much data as an average you have. The cool thing is that compared to blood, you have about 1,000 times more data per element tested, because you're taking this huge statistical average. So it's like surveying 1,000 people versus 10 people, or one person. The interesting thing to just compare it against blood, I will say, if you're a practitioner listening to this, you can add this to your protocol of things, and it gives you, at the very least, inarguably, an extra data point, an extra viewpoint or perspective from which to, question what someone needs more of, right? So if you're doing, a full blood plan, great, but the problem with blood, and this is not my opinion, just think about this with me logically. Your blood is obviously you on your best behavior. It is you. Your blood is like you as a little kid going to the principal's office. It's like, like it's getting ready. It's you on your best behavior. I mean, and why is that? Well, your blood has to be, the pH is about 7.36 or so, and if it whenever it strays from that, we die. For very much, right? So if someone had a night of heavy drinking, their blood pH is off, or stress, it can change it. If they did breath work, they probably just improved it really quickly, radically. And there's just a number of these fluctuations, but it changes quickly, and it pulls from things like bone marrow and tissue. So when you do that, you start.
Your blood does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, your body will pull to maintain a homeostasis throughout that blood because it's delivering nutrients, and it's that vitally important, hence the phrase lifeblood, right? So understanding that, I would just ask, do you think that's the best place logically to sample from? And what I've really come to believe after doing this for years is that we could spot a deficiency years ahead of time, maybe as much as a decade ahead of time in hair before we'd see it in blood, because it takes so long. I mean, if you're showing a deficiency in blood, it's been there for years, for sure, for that reason. So that's something to think about.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
So because your body's always trying to achieve homeostasis, and you said your blood's like number one job is to do that, right? So it's going to be pulling elements that it needs from throughout your body. That's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
How does that mechanism of action correlate to heavy metals? I remember years ago I got a blood test and it was crazy high in lead. Yet they say, oh, lead just gets stored in your bones, and things like that. Are you going to show more heavy metals, or I'm sorry, fewer heavy metals in your blood typically than you would in a hair test, because your body is sequestering them in fat cells and kind of hiding those metals to get them out of your system?
Yes. In fact, there's a study to show that after 32 days after following a acute lead exposure, the lead was not detectable in the blood. So the body sequestered it because
brutal.
Yeah, and it showed in hair. So it's there. If you see it somewhere, then it's in the body, right? But the idea is, I know EPA, for example, has used hair to determine if an area had exposure to heavy metals. So that's another thing. And I think that really the reason why this is not popular is because the natural solution that's logical following a hair analysis is like, it's complex. I remember talking to Dr. Pompa, and he's like, I think our platinum docs will like this, like the training. We have a course now for practitioners.
I saw that. You have an online course.
Yeah, we have and anyone can do it and take it. But he said, I think the reason why it didn't work is just it's complicated. It's complex. And I think part of me thinks that's why it wasn't taught in med school. But the other part I just dove into it because I had an affinity for chemistry, and I was already like, I've learned everything that's hard about chemistry that's taught in school, and so I'm not afraid of the depth of it. So, and in fact, I'm incredibly interested by it. So I came from that perspective. But the other part of me thinks that, well, that's what I was saying earlier, the natural path from that is not medicine, or let me rephrase, medication. The natural path is elements, supplements, which you can't patent and have a deal on. So
right. So
if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So in med school, you're not learning the hair mineral analysis because you can't prescribe Prozac or statin or whatever to fix what you're finding on that graph on the result.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, most shit that they would give you would actually make your chart worse.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'd come back and hair test again and be like, what? I'm actually more toxic or more depleted.
Yeah. And going to speak to what you're saying about heavy metals, when your body is, let's say, in a state where you're taking in some of these toxic medications, your body's having to really detox from those. That was the case with my mother and what she was doing. I noticed more medication led to surgery, led to removing thymus gland, led to more medication, led to, wow, the health is really crashing now. And that's the path for a lot of people. And then passing away, and that is, that's, anyway, that's a different topic. But with heavy metals, your body accumulates them more easily electrostatically whenever you have mineral deficiencies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
And that's the light bulb moment right there for me.
That's heavy. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I've been obsessed with minerals lately. I've been listening to Matt Blackburn's podcast because he's interviewed this guy Morley Robbins, I think like 10 times or something. And this guy like geeks out so hard. He's really into iron overload, fixing iron overload, and his whole perspective that we have iron kind of wrong in the medical, way of thinking, and then that we're copper deficient. So I've been really obsessing on all this stuff. But he was talking about that relationship, that these minerals are so critical to detox. And so a lot of people get really obsessed on, I got high heavy metals, I got to detox these heavy metals, when like what would make you, or at least I think radically assist your ability to detox metals, is put their counterparts of the minerals that are healthy, because they're all minerals, right, is getting more of those and fixing the deficiencies. Yep. Damn, that's interesting.
Yep, that's the huge.
That's the exploding skull emoji.
Yes.
All right, so
And to that point,
Yeah.
so with iron and copper, for example, a lot of people, and this is something that's also making people either really sick or in some cases, I would say killing people, is that they are actually low in copper, but they're also low in iron, or it just looks like they're low in iron, and then they are told that they need to take, or maybe they're higher in iron and they're low in copper, and that's copper anemia, right? But a blood test, anyone that I've seen is, they're not going to be measuring copper. So, but it's really important. And if you push all your copper out, you're going to have a real issue. You're going to have bacterial infections like crazy, which is something that is happening right now. People they're not understanding what's happening, but they've been megadosing zinc for several years since the start of this thing we've had go on in the world. And because of that, zinc's been like a lot of people's favorite thing, one of their favorite things. That's imbalanced copper. Now their copper's low. They're not testing copper. They go in, they see their iron's low, and then they start supplementing iron. That pushes copper out even more.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
From what I'm learning, man, copper is super important.
Yeah.
And that we're incredibly deficient. And I think, did I send you the podcast? I think it was a MitoLife one about copper toxicity is a myth. Is that the one that I sent you a couple days ago?
No, you didn't send me that one.
All right, I'm going to send that to you. Yeah. It's crazy, dude. The benefits of copper and the whole thing, like the scams you were talking about. There was this whole kind of anti-copper scam that's not grounded in any kind of science at all, and that
we need copper.
We're missing a huge piece.
It's good for creativity. It's good for, it's synonymous like with estrogen in the body, which both men and women need, in balanced levels in relationship to the other hormones. So will make you more creative. If you have too much of it, though, you'll be sort of ungrounded in your creativity. So you'll start a lot of things, but finish not that many. Which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. And
I don't relate to that at all.
I mean, and not to say that copper is the only culprit there, obviously, but
I mean, part of it's personality type. I always just say I'm a great starter, and I really am. I'm not even putting myself down. I'm great at starting stuff.
Right.
Finishing, sometimes not as much. For those watching on the video, because I just love show and tells. So for those of you watching my camera, hopefully this gets edited into mine, or maybe the wide camera shot there. But I kind of just wanted to show the process of what this is like. So you cut like an inch or so of your hair in, what is it, 4, 5, 6 spots or something?
Yeah, whatever it takes to not show.
Right.
So that's the reason why, like, having your barber or your hairdresser do this is probably a good idea, or someone, not you. I've done it myself, but my hair is fairly thick, particularly in back. So, but I'll still do it in multiple places. Like you might do 3 dots on the back of the side, on one side in the back, and then 3 more dots, and you're only taking a little bit of hair total. But you want to be able to essentially take one. I think the kit says 2 tablespoons, but you want to be able to take 1 tablespoon and fill it up, so that we can test multiple times and ensure utmost accuracy.
So you're cutting that hair, you're putting it in this little Ziploc.
Sounds like a lot, but it's really not.
It's not, and especially if your hair's at all long, then you take it from the nape of the neck. The longer hairs on top just cover it up anyway.
Right.
But I had Allison do mine the other day to send my test in to you guys, and she's like, "Oh, I don't want to." I'm like, "I don't care. Like, I don't really care if I have a bunch of bald spots in the back. I just want the results."
Sure.
But it goes in this little plastic bag,
and you won't have that. You won't be able to tell.
No, you can't tell.
You can,
and I told her just to go nuts.
You just you do it however many spots. If your hair is super thin, maybe you have like 4 dots going up each side, and you do that twice, or whatever it takes to not show a gap, or just take it somewhere else. Yeah.
So put it in the envelope, or in the little in the baggie, and then mail it off, and that's it. It takes like 5 minutes.
Yeah. You have a little paper envelope that usually goes.
Oh, the smaller one. Yeah.
And it goes in that, because the hair tends to stick to plastic, so we put it in paper so it slides out.
When I did the questionnaire on there, it asks you if your hair's dyed and what kind of shampoo you're using and stuff. What are the risks of your data being corrupted by other things that might be in or on your hair?
It's a good question. So the hair dye question is because if you dye your hair black, then you'll typically show cobalt as being something that you're artificially elevated in. Not a big deal because it's not one of the most important areas that we're looking at in terms of individual element or ratios. So it's pretty minor. It's a pretty minor thing. And then titanium could be elevated in the case of blonde hair dye.
So when I put on mine, it was like, what shampoo? And I'm like, I don't even use shampoo. I use Dr. Bronner soap. So I wrote that on there. But I'm like, I don't think it probably has any minerals in it or anything.
Yeah, it doesn't. But, imagine like Selsun Blue, some of these have either high selenium or zinc in them.
Oh, okay.
So that could be artificial, and it's just good for the nutritionist to be able to know that when they look at review their chart with you.
So we haven't done our consultation yet because I'm still waiting for my test results, but we did get Allison's. I think we have it in 2 days, but you were leaving town, and I wanted to get that done. But if you're training people how to do consultations about the hair mineral analysis results, you must know something about it. So I brought Allison's just for the hell of it.
Sure.
I asked her, though. I was like, is it cool if I talk about your hair? And she didn't mind. But then when I was researching for this conversation, I usually just check other people's podcasts and stuff to make sure I don't say the same questions. I want to create a unique conversation, And one of the ones that I clicked on today was Ben Greenfield's show when you were on it, and he posted his hair results on his site. And I was like, oh, I wonder what his are like. And I'm like, you dick. He has like no heavy metals. Yeah. All his minerals are like off the charts. I'm like, this is insane. Like, does it get any better than that? Yeah. I think he had like medium high strontium or something. Like one of the metals was a little high.
He had some cadmium too.
He did?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. Cadmium.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was the only one that was kind of poking up in the little bar graph.
It's been like a year and a half, but if my memory serves me,
I think that's what it was, actually. And then, and then I look at Allison's, and hers looks great for someone who just lives a healthy, normal life and isn't like a nutty biohacker like me. Right. But, we're looking to have a baby and stuff, which is part of kind of wanting to know what's going on.
Oh, yeah, the iodine. We should talk about that, too.
Yes. Yeah. But what I found really interesting about hers was that her magnesium shows up as above level. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, everyone's deficient in magnesium. How the hell is hers up there? But the calcium is also above.
Yeah, the calcium is very high. So the iodine, so two things. With magnesium being high there, what this actually means is that she's actually low in a cofactor. So she can be absorbing it. She needs to be utilizing more of it. So B6 is.
Okay.
Yep. So she's still most likely low in it.
Just pounding more magnesium is not necessarily, or I'm sorry, taking less of it because it's above.
No.
Okay, so this would mean like, is she metabolizing too much magnesium because of the B6 deficiency?
It's just that the B6 is needed. It helps. Yeah, it's something that a lot of people are low in. It's really easy to be low in B6. The body uses it as a cofactor for so many things. So that's a big improvement there. And then calcium being super high in that case, the interesting way to get that down is actually by taking magnesium. So that really helps. And that's part of the reason why the body's like keeping it elevated is because calcium's there. And if she's doing a lot of vitamin D, that's why her calcium's high. That's one of the concerns I've seen also in the past couple of years when pretty much the only supplement I've seen recommended is vitamin D, and that causes a lot of calcium, causes calcium overabsorption if it's not in the presence of magnesium too. So we have a product soon that has a balanced approach to this, but you also need boron, for example, to utilize vitamin D, which I haven't heard anyone talk about. You need B6 to help the utilization of magnesium if someone's really low in it. Granted, your cells will still use it, and you need it to do many functions in the body. So, for example, it's needed in ATP production, right? So is copper, incidentally. So there's just more proof that copper is important. Uh, the interesting way, and I know she's on iodine and talking to you, but iodine helps break down calcium. And if you're taking a lot of K2, so like 300 micrograms of K2, that will help redistribute the calcium throughout the body, which is awesome.
I got her on the K2.
Good.
Yeah,
Good,
one of our
good.
sponsors, Just Thrive, makes a great K2, so she's been on that. She's not a big supplement person, but I'm like, look at this, we could fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hopefully she can be more consistent than she's been. If you're saying that, between tests, and we'll see some improvement. But like you said earlier, I mean, it really comes down to consistency. Like the products, have to work, but it's also consistency. So that's what I would say for that portion.
Another thing I find interesting about these results is the mercury, lead, cadmium, cadmium, and arsenic. Those are all like acceptable range. I mean, obviously, in an ideal world, you want 0 of those because they're not useful in any way. But then there was crazy high barium and aluminum. Do you find that many people are high in aluminum? I have theories about where it could be coming from, and I'm just curious, is that
it's very common?
It is pretty universal. Now, would any of these minerals here help to counteract the aluminum, like iodine with fluoride, for example? That kind of
great. Yeah. So iodine with fluoride is definitely a great solution there. Also, though, you want to take iodine if you're taking it like a liquid like ours to make sure that you actually do take it in the presence of like RO water or something that doesn't have fluoride in it. Ours also, as you know, is like tasteless virtually. So you can do that particular product straight, although I would say all of our other products I would dilute.
Yeah, I learned that.
Yeah.
Because I do your iodine, just, I keep it on the kitchen counter. I just do a couple squirts when I walk by here and there. And then I got the liquid magnesium, and I tried that. And I was
diluted.
like, oh. I read the bottle. I was like, put in a glass of water. Okay. I always learn the hard way.
Yeah. That's part of being on the edge of things, on the cutting edge.
Do you know of any counteractive
yes.
In terms of the aluminum? Would copper help?
Silica would be a great help for that. Yeah. Great help for that one.
Do you guys make a silica?
We will soon.
Cool.
It's in, maybe by the time this is out, probably maybe another month after.
Oh, cool.
We'll have it in a skin product.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I used to take this. Oh man, what was it called? Living Silica or something. I forget the brand, but it was like really hot on the scene maybe 10 years ago or something like that. Living Orgon or something like that, I think was the brand. I take so much stuff sometimes I can't. I don't notice if did it help? I don't know. I read all their literature. The site was very compelling, so I took it.
Yeah, the silica should, if it's being absorbed, you should be able to tell from your nails. That's your quickest thing. Your nails will suddenly become harder. So if they tear easily on you, you probably need silica.
Interesting.
Yeah, and for that reason, you probably are also accumulating more aluminum than you would otherwise if you were not low in silica.
Right.
So,
hey, in relation to metals and minerals, how do I say this without getting kicked off the internet? There were videos going around early on in the pandemic wherein people that had chosen to give themselves certain injections were becoming magnetic at the site of the injection. Like you take a little refrigerator magnet and it would stick on your arm. Wow. And I thought, one of 10,000 reasons why I'm never going near that particular quote-unquote medication. But then I did a test on myself, and I had obviously not participated in that. I took a magnet off my refrigerator, and it sticks to my freaking sternum, bro.
Yeah.
And then another person that I know, it stuck to them on multiple places, like on their arms and chest, and I think, was it even like their leg or something? I'm like, what the hell is happening here? Is this some nanobots from chemtrails getting in us? Or I'm like, start thinking of worst case scenario. But just based on kind of looking at this sort of chart of elements, can you think of any reason why a magnet would stick to a freaking human body, except for people that have put that thing in their body?
Yeah. The idea would be, so there's certain, heavy, so enzyme, let's back up a step. So minerals activate all the enzymatic pathways in the body, right? So if we're pumped full of vitamins and we don't have minerals, those enzyme pathways don't, like, they're useless because you need minerals to activate. But heavy metals, to a lesser extent, certain heavy metals will activate certain mineral pathways. Certain pathways are intended for minerals. So to a lesser extent. So ultimately, short term, the body's thinking you have to survive today. So in its innate intelligence, it'll use heavy metals to activate an enzyme pathway. Now, and if you're low in minerals at the same time, like we talked about, all of that, keeping that in mind. So you could end up with, for example, cadmium in your bones, and then that magnet's going to stick. Sternum, there might be some heavy metals,
Oh, in the bones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, I immediately was thinking it's in the blood.
Yeah.
But you're so close to that bone right here.
Yeah.
That sucks. I don't like that.
Maybe that could be it.
No,
like,
that's
makes
a pretty
sense,
good
though.
theory.
Yeah.
I texted quite a few geniuses that have been on my show and stuff that I'm friendly with, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
One person.
It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
One person
because I know for a fact that happens. Like you get heavy metals in bones, and that's why you get brittle bones later in life.
Right.
Hence the blood pulling, lifeblood, everything we said earlier.
Yeah. I threw that inquiry out to a couple of people, and someone came back with if your red blood cells, if you have iron overload essentially, and your red blood cells aren't carrying as much or enough oxygen, that cell is going to be chock full of iron.
Yep, that's true too.
And I thought that might explain why on the skin, where there's not there's some depth to where the bone is, like maybe it's sticking to iron in your blood. Like you have so much freaking iron.
Very possible.
You're like a walking metal pylon or whatever.
Yeah, hematochromatosis, right? Yeah, so that's very common for men, especially if you're eating a lot of red meat. I've recently been in that range, so I went and I give blood twice a year, sometimes 3 times, but twice is usually a pretty good number for people. Again, test, don't guess. Be testing your levels. You don't want to be low in iron and then giving blood. It's better, but because men are not bleeding each month like women that are in that stage of life where they're having a period, then they're much more likely to be susceptible to something like this. So.
This is what trips me out about the Morley Robbins work and all the stuff he does about iron overload. Mm-hmm. Since women,
I will say that iron overload in your blood vessels will age you faster, from a skin perspective, but also just in this we have conditions like just all these different blood vessel conditions that we have different names for, and I think a lot of it comes down to, do you have excess metals that are scraping it, essentially, damaging it?
Wow. Yeah, with his stuff, and again, I'm not expert on it yet. I'll reach out to him and see if I can get an interview. But he was talking about how blood testing for your iron and ferritin and all this is basically fake news, because the iron that you should be concerned about is the iron that gets sequestered into your tissues, and that your tissues will lock up excess iron and lead to all of this cascade of other problems there. But what
that's true. Iron will deposit in joints too, just like calcium.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you literally have like rust, and then it oxidizes, right? So you literally have rust inside your body.
Yeah.
Oh man, God. Yeah. Being in a human meat suit comes with so many challenges.
Right. It's a wonder that we're alive at all, really. But what's that? Now that I'm thinking about that Theodore Roosevelt quote, I'd rather burn out than rust out, or something.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. The other thing with too much iron that I think is crazy is that women are very susceptible to iron overload, even though for those that are of age are menstruating every month. I'm like, because I give blood a couple times a year, just because I'm a good person.
Yeah.
But to get just offload that excess iron, it's kind of a transfusion. It just made sense to me to just make your body make more red blood cells and just produce more of it. Just kind of it's almost like a little fast or something, just activating a mechanism of action in your body. But it seems weird to me, especially with women that have heavier periods. Like, if they're losing that much blood every month, how the hell could they still have too much iron? I think that's, maybe the copper deficiency and some of these other things have something to do with that too.
Right, because it's not just the individual level that's important. More than anything, it's the ratios. Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Selfishly going back to
Mhm.
this test,
Sure.
and I could be using anyone's. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's
It's
one that I
more
have in front of
interesting.
me here.
Sure.
But the high aluminum, I was like, oh, whoa,
Mhm.
dang.
It's the silica.
Then silica for that,
Mhm.
and then there's a below normal selenium on this one.
And you can do binders too, of course, with all of those, and they can go over that in the consultation. But and then you said what, selenium?
Selenium is a little below normal.
That makes sense, right? Because selenium and iodine will usually, selenium and iodine will usually both be low, even though we don't, there's iodine's not, brief aside, statement, iodine's not in enough of an amount in the body to test accurately. So you could see it on some tests. We don't have it on ours. People will sell you a test for it. It won't be accurate from everything I've been able to uncover. So yeah, it's just in small. But both of those minerals have what in common? Well, they both are essential for thyroid function. And if someone has high calcium, they usually are in the low thyroid camp. And high calcium is really deleterious for a couple reasons. One, just to kind of touch back on that for a little bit, is because it interferes. We call it a calcium shell if it's above a certain point when we're looking at a hair analysis, and that means that the penetrative quality around the cell is such that it's reduced by calcium, and therefore other nutrients are having a hard time getting in. So you want more iodine. If you need that, if you're suffering from that, you most likely have low iodine, and then those seem to travel. So the fact that she has high calcium and she has low selenium makes a lot of sense.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What about that? We mentioned it, but go a little deeper into, if you happen to know,
Mhm.
the iodine relationship with fluoride.
Mhm.
We're just completely inundated with fluoride. I think
Right.
about going back to the 70s and being a kid and drinking out of the freaking fountain on the playground in school. It's like fluoridated water. And I think even though people now are starting to learn to drink bottled water or filtered water or
Mhm.
whatever, I'm very suspect of all of the water that is tap water that's in all of the drinks.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't drink beer or wine, but just think they're not using like reverse osmosis
No,
water in
no,
your
they're not.
Coors, you know what I'm saying? And then even your kombuchas and all these drinks that we think are healthy, I think are oftentimes made with water that's probably not filtered adequately
Yeah.
because, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, fluoride is so minuscule and light as an element that it's really difficult to filter out. That's
Yeah.
why reverse osmosis
Mhm.
or distillation and really aggressive forms of filtration are kind of the only way to get to the fluoride.
Right.
So a lot of us are, just heavily burdened by a lifetime of eating fluoride.
Right. Right. So iodine can be thought of this like bodyguard that jumps in front of the president, so to speak. It's like sacrificial. It's noble in that way. So if your intake is high of water that has a lot of fluoride in it, then, or if you're doing, toothpaste that has fluoride, you want to stop because it is interfering with your absorption of iodine if you're doing it at the same time. And then it's, the iodine's instead of going toward producing thyroid hormone, it is in this, stuck in this like emergency situation where it's just protecting the body from a free radical, from a damaging, element. So, yeah, I mean, there's some studies out there to show that we benefit from a tiny bit of fluoride, which I don't know how I feel about that. But it's likely that all elements have, that's more of a hormetic discussion. But certainly you don't need to go out of your way to try to ingest fluoride. If you're doing some trace minerals, there's probably a little, a touch of fluoride in it.
There's also the different forms of fluoride,
that
even
too.
some spring water
Mhm.
has like a little fluoride
Right.
when I look at the labs,
Right,
but
right.
it's not, I forget what it's called, but the fluoride
Right.
that's put into the water supply is fluorobliglic acid or something like that. It's like the super caustic chemical. I remember there was a meme a few years ago about fluoridated water, and it showed, a tanker truck carrying this type of fluoride that we put in the water, that had fallen over, and it ate a freaking hole in the street. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is what we're putting in the water, Yeah. Wow. And then you're drinking your green tea from Whole Foods made with that water, it's just totally insane. And the brittle bones and all of this stuff that happens as a result of that fluoride, your body trying to get rid of it and putting it, away for safekeeping in your bones, kind of like lead. It's super gnarly stuff. Yeah. But I think, like, it just makes sense to be supplementing with iodine. Yeah. I mean, for the thyroid and all of its other benefits to the brain and everything. But you would in order, like, because you're getting probably more fluoride than you think you are, you go get some Thai food and you get the soup and it's made with tap water. Like, it's just in everything, right? So it seems like you would probably want to double up on fluoride to just use it for that defensive mitigation.
Or iodine?
I'm sorry, iodine. Yeah. Double up on the fluoride. Go sip it from out of the truck as it spills. Going a little heavier on the iodine to just counteract the fluoride, and then you need enough of it that's not being used for that job to then use it for the other benefits that it has.
Yeah, because iodine will also blast off mercury from receptor sites too. And
really,
it's iodine's really cool. I mean, it's antibacterial. I've said since day one of the pandemic that, hey, if people are worried about viruses, what kills viruses is iodine. What does not kill it is like Germ-X and stuff.
When I feel a little something come on, I nebulize your iodine, actually.
That's a great idea. I remember you messaging me about that a while ago, and I not thought to do that, but I did hear on Joe Rogan that there's the most decorated or most published. He's published more papers than any other cardiologist in the U.S. He talked about taking iodine, not ours, but just iodine in general. So ours would be great for it, but and essentially snorting it.
Dr. Peter McCullough or whatever his name.
It was a great interview.
It was, It was. It's so funny that it got censored. I'm like, this guy is so decorated, you know what I mean? He's highly credentialed doctor, and they're treating him like he's some fucking conspiracy theorist. It's just insane.
Literally the most published doctor, and until he had this interview, they were totally fine with everything he had to say.
It's hilarious, man.
And he came very much from the point of, like, he was on the side of thinking like medication was a solution, and then he realized after years and years of like, wow, people aren't getting better, and starting to become disillusioned. So, when you're thoroughly on one side and you fully understand it, and then you move to the other side, bit by bit, after more and more evidence, it's just all the more valid, really.
So, it's not like a health nut like me coming out against something.
Same,
With the iodine, I remember when he mentioned that, and I felt so proud of myself because I've been putting Lugol's or nascent iodine in my neti pot for years. I mean, I don't use a neti pot right now, but now I make little nasal sprays. Another thing
I've taken our dropper and just done like that.
Just dropped it up there?
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Another thing I've used iodine for is when taking a bath. And maybe you could tell me if biochemically this, or just chemically if this makes sense, but someone said it's good to put a few drops of iodine in a bath to help mitigate the chlorine.
Yeah.
Because on the periodic scale, they're kind of opposites, and it'll cancel it out. And I swear to God, if you put a few drops of just Lugol's or nascent iodine, it's kind of brown, really strong stuff, 5 drops, half a dropper full in your bath, it totally nukes the chlorine smell. I don't know if it's reducing the the deficit of the chemical exposure per se.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, certainly. I mean, you're having some armor, some defense to what your body would otherwise have to defend on its own, based on its own iodine supply, or lack thereof, which we're incredibly deficient, to the point that it's as if we have our daily value almost at a laughably low level at 150 micrograms. That's why our iodine dose, granted, we have a dropper, so you can choose your own adventure. But 5 milligrams is not too little for a lot of people. I mean, it's case in point. So Japan has the longest lifespan of any industrialized country, right? They they beat us by quite a good margin, and they eat, not for only this reason, but they consume roughly 100 times more iodine than our RDA. And
from the seaweed,
just something to think about.
From eating seaweed, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All the sea vegetables, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Now, granted, they've had different things like a nuclear reaction, which maybe there's some heavy metals in their sea plants. So I don't know. Like day in, day out, I don't know if I would eat. Like I'm sure there's a downside to eating some of those vegetables. Now, the iodine is helping you protect against at least some of those heavy metals chemically. But what I do like in our situation is that, at least for us, we third-party test every single batch of product we put out. So if you have iodine, you're not going to have heavy metals in it. You'll be clean. So there's a thought there. Yeah. But I've taken quite large doses of iodine. I'm not recommending that for people. Again, test your labs and understand, hey, my low in selenium, do I have is my hair test showing that I have low thyroid function or overactive parathyroid function? We can see that in a hair test. If you do blood work, that is something that will line up for sure. If you're low in blood, you're going to be low in hair too.
What's the relationship between selenium and mercury?
Selenium helps you push out mercury. So that's one of the cool ones. Selenium will help. So will sulfur, and so will zinc. So
cool.
those are 3 we know about for sure.
Cool.
That will help.
Hey, before I forget too, if anyone listening wants to check out Upgraded Formulas and get some of your minerals, you guys have given us a discount.
Yay.
Thank you. And I probably say it in the intro or something, but
Sure.
When I'm listening to podcasts, I'm like, oh, I want to try this. Then I would be stoked if I got a discount. So thank you for that. You guys can find it at upgradedformulas.com. And the code, strangely enough, is Luke. And that gets you 15% off. Does that count, by the way, for the hair test too, or is that just for the minerals? Oh, cool.
That's everything.
Oh, sick. Well, that'll save you a bit of money on the hair test, guys. Upgradedformulas.com. Luke is the code. All right. So what I'm getting from this, I'm getting a lot from this,
and that could apply to the course too, as well.
Oh,
they would just have to email us about that, I believe.
Okay, cool. If somebody wants to learn how to dissect these hair mineral analysis tests.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Let's see. What else did I want to talk about here? I've heard you speak about mineral levels and things like ADHD and addictions. Break a bit of that down for us.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So ADHD, for example, usually low in, for example, magnesium. That's a hallmark that we're going to see. And also high in an array of heavy metals. So that is most likely looking like low in iodine too. But if someone's low in magnesium, they're going to have a really tough time feeling safe in their own body and calm. Magnesium is a very calming mineral. It's a alkalizing mineral. It's as well. And whenever the body's not struggling to maintain its chemistry balance as much, magnesium is key in something like 800 functions now that we know of. We used to think it was less. It seems like it's 800, and there's some research to show that not only do all minerals affect this and deficiencies in general, but just the magnesium deficiency is linked to every single disease.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But certainly disease in general can be traced back to nutrient deficiencies, most important of which, from my lens, being minerals. And heavy metals do get in the way of that, and you can use minerals to get rid of them. What else? So that's ADHD. There could be other things too, like depression would be magnesium, could be blood sugar minerals, manganese, chromium, things like that. And then maybe you're not sleeping well. So magnesium is going to be key for deep sleep. Potassium is also important for deep, slow wave sleep as well. And
potassium is good for sleep too.
Right, potassium is good. It helps the
wonder
muscles that need to contract. So
I wonder if that's one of the reasons that bone broth is so relaxing at night.
Yeah, could be.
So I've thought about the amino acids in it, but it's probably got a shitload of potassium in it, I would think, right?
Probably does. Calcium is also a sedative mineral, and I'm sure I know there's good levels of calcium in there. And then, so that's a thought. And then
addictions.
Going back to addictions, so it's interesting. So there's things like if you look at, say, marijuana, it has typically high levels of cadmium in it.
Really? Naturally?
Yeah. Hemp as well. Yeah.
Really?
So the hemp plant, that's something we looked at it with Ben, is that we thought that we're guessing. He's like, where am I getting this cadmium from? And I said, well, what's your CBD intake like? And he's like, oh man. He's like, it's pretty high. I was like, I know it's high. He's like, I've heard you talk about this before. And so the thing with a hemp plant, unfortunately, I mean, they used to use them. I think they still do use them. They have for a long time to clean up like landfill areas, because the plant it will stay alive. Basically, it will just suck up everything, and metals included. So you could have a toxic waste zone, and hemp will just soak it up. And that's probably part of the soaking up these metals is part of the reason why hemp, we've probably heard, it's like 10 times stronger than concrete, right? How? Well, it's a lot of metals in there.
Really?
Yeah.
This is why it's so important. I have a friend that's got a company called Onda, and they make a full spectrum, just beyond organic. Some of it even biodynamic hemp. And he was telling me that with that plant, it's even more important that it's grown organically. And now you're reminding me, he said, because it sucks up everything. So even if they're using, fertilizers and stuff that you don't want in your body, even if it's not heavy metals, that you're going to be bummed, highly concentrated.
Yep.
That's trippy.
Interesting, right?
Okay, so
there's cadmium.
So with the addiction, if we're blazing mad trees, we could be getting
and nicotine as well.
Cadmium. Damn it!
I know. Well, at least cigarettes. I don't know about other.
Maybe not pharmaceutical nicotine.
Right. Okay, might be fine. I was just a paper I read a long time ago, and then the interesting thing is you could crave copper-rich foods, because copper will displace cadmium temporarily. So, for example, dark chocolate has a lot of copper. If you have high cadmium, then you could become even more addicted to this push-pull of like copper-rich foods.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and the other way around. So if you have high copper, then you'll be more addicted to something like, or more drawn to something like, tobacco or weed.
What about about like alcohol and hard
marijuana.
Drugs? I've heard that drugs in general, like street drugs, will deplete your copper also.
Nutrients in general, particularly, I don't know specifically about copper one way or another, but minerals in general, because usually it's affecting pH, or it's affecting some aspect of the body where the body's having to balance the blood afterward.
Oh, right. So if you have someone who's like a hardcore drug addict and alcoholic, they're almost guaranteed to be really depleted in minerals.
Yes, yeah, and most likely have toxicity too. So and again, it's all reversible. I think that's the most hope-inspiring part of all of this, is that you can test, you can understand where you are, and then through cycles, it's not overnight, but you get improvements almost immediately through this process. A lot of people start sleeping better from the very first night taking just upgraded magnesium, but that's a place to start. It's, maybe you also need B6 because your levels come back as high. I can assure you your magnesium is not high.
Have you seen anyone's test where their magnesium is high, not because of a deficiency?
Yeah, my own for sure has been there before, and but it's it's hard to tell also, because maybe I was also low in B6 at that moment, because building a company, even though I'm supplementing B6 daily and things like that. So, but it really jumped from one test to another. I was like, probably. And then I noticed that, all right, well, my ratios again, sodium to magnesium, were off, things like that. So yeah.
How often are you doing the test yourself?
Usually I shoot for every 2 months, but I end up doing it about what we recommend, which is every quarterly. Yeah.
And so when yours must be pretty dialed in now, have you seen vast improvement since you kind of created your own products and started taking them?
Yeah, definitely. Sleep. I have more energy now in my mid-30s and more just stamina, I would say, than I did in my mid-20s. I was just gassed, after pushing super hard through sports, like I talked about, and then, like in a wrestling practice, or jujitsu, it's common to just sweat through like multiple shirts, and you're not replenishing all those nutrients. Like, you're never replenishing all that potassium from all that muscle contraction. And that potassium's also needed for your adrenal function. So people that are trying to support adrenal function, they're not doing minerals. They're just like, it's just a lost cause for sure. Herbs to work to the extent, largely at least, like licorice is known as being a good adrenal support, right? Well, when you look at the chemical breakdown of licorice, it has a lot of potassium and a lot of sodium, very supportive of the adrenals. The other thing, I guess, in that cluster is a lot of people will focus on thyroid function first, when in my opinion, they really should be focusing on adrenal function, getting those nice and strong and supported and replenished. And then once you're revitalized, replenished, renewed from that standpoint, then you can focus more on the thyroid.
Do you think a lot of people that are told or believe that they have adrenal fatigue, it's kind of been a trend the past couple of years, I think, as a diagnosis. Do you think that many of them are just deficient in minerals?
I really do. Yeah. And it's also, in that case, some vitamins too, like B6 is really important. Vitamin C is really important. So vitamin C, B6, and then you've got magnesium, you've got sodium and potassium. Those are your main.
What foods contain vitamin B6?
B6, I believe things like sweet potatoes, and it's been a while since I checked on that one.
I wonder if organ meats are high in that.
I think they are.
I feel like organ meats have everything you need.
They have a lot of B vitamins.
They do, right?
I think B6 is in there. I can't remember.
We'll look into it.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to know that.
Yeah.
Do you think that...
I knew stuff like that was more top of mind when I was doing all the consultations myself years ago, and now our nutritionists are. So
you're building a company, too, and doing podcasts.
Yeah.
Okay, with the magnesium and calcium thing, I've always just had the sense that it would be wise to kind of be, I don't want to say over supplementing magnesium, but maybe using magnesium to overcompensate the influx of calcium, and most people are very high in calcium, the influx of calcium into the cell from EMF exposure. It's opening that channel, and our cells, anytime around Wi-Fi or cell towers or any of this stuff, are abnormally just left wide open.
Yeah.
And so then not only are we high in calcium, but it's actually our cells are high in calcium, which is even worse than just kind of having it floating around in our body. Do you think...
And vitamin D does that as well.
It does?
Yeah. You can...
Yeah, I don't supplement vitamin D3.
No.
I don't.
No.
Doesn't sound good to me.
No.
There's a lot of information in the counter alternative health world that's like, that doesn't sound smart at all.
No. If you are going to do it, you need to be doing it with, like, in the presence of all the things I mentioned earlier. So for the people that are going to do it either way, we're going to have a supplement that has all the other cofactors that you want. Because if you're just doing just a huge dose of that and like K2, then you can hold the calcium channel open in the brain too long and actually cause cell death.
Oh, Brian.
From what I've read, like, that's just something I've read, but I've read that multiple times throughout the years, long before COVID and pandemic and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So back to my original
but magnesium helps with
concept
that.
here.
Yeah,
If you're having, more magnesium than you could use, maybe that would help with the EMF issue.
for sure.
And the
Yeah.
kind of.
Oh, I feel it. I feel, I can just tell, just somatically, that my body is, if I'm super high on magnesium, I just feel like I walk through the world and everything is just kind of bouncing off of me. And I have a lot more vitality. Mood is better. Creativity is better. Follow through is better. Just that balancing effect, and is huge. Alkalizing effect, all of it.
Do you?
And certainly helping with the EMF.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad
yeah.
it's not just all in my mind as a
Oh,
fantasy.
I can just tell. Yeah.
With EMF, I think, I'm always thinking about ways that you got to have my Soma Vedic here and the Leela thing and the Blue Shield and all the things. But I'm also thinking about what we can do internally. There's things you can take as an internal sunscreen, right? Like lots of chaga tea or astaxanthin and things like that. So I'm always thinking of like, how can I fortify against EMF from the inside? And magnesium has always made sense to me. And also molecular hydrogen, the hydrogen water. And oh, you got one right here. Yeah. Shout out to HydroShot. I love these freaking things. Or taking the tabs from like Vital Reaction and the, the anti-inflammation and reduction of oxidative stress to me makes sense. And I've noticed that if I do magnesium and hydrogen on flights, I'm way more resilient to whatever's happening up in those planes.
Yeah.
Because if I don't take both of those, I'm smoked.
I've noticed that too. I don't take, not often enough, but I think that's a great approach. And I definitely take our magnesium. Yeah. And
awesome.
Then, when you're going through airports, maybe, that's just another reason to have pre-check, is so you can more likely go through the less of the.
Yeah, I don't walk through those millimeter wave things.
Yeah.
I'll miss my flight to get a pat down.
Yeah.
I almost do very often. On magnesium, do you think that these magnesium baths do anything for you? Like, when you take the magnesium chloride flakes and fill up a bath?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
Transdermal and the transdermal oil, like Activation Products makes my favorite of the oils because it doesn't leave you all sticky. It seems to absorb. But do you think that's a valid way to get more magnesium in your body?
I do. I think that it still is not as good as ingesting it, but you could do both. There's no reason that you can't do both. I like floating too, because you're floating in the Dead Sea essentially, and I think one of the, you're certainly absorbing some of that magnesium too. You can just tell after. It's not just the darkness and the meditation for an hour that help calm your mind. It's that you absorbed a lot of magnesium. So
that's a good point. That reminds me, I've been here a year and I've not floated yet.
Yeah.
And literally, a buddy of mine has this place, Kuya. Have you been to Kuya yet? They have float tanks that come down anytime. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And I just never do. I really need to go start floating again.
I do it all the time, even though I have what I think is the best magnesium product out there. I still will float. It's just we're burning through it all the time.
Yeah.
I seem to burn through a lot of it all the time. I also have this constitution where I can have really high output that's sustained, but not if I don't have magnesium. So
that's
if your mitochondria are super healthy. I mean, I think they're going to be burning through about as much as magnesium as you give it. So just about. But again, it has to be balanced with, for example, sodium. And sodium needs to be balanced with potassium, and to the extent you don't have enough salt, enough sodium, you're not going to retain magnesium in the body as easily, too.
Oh,
it's
really?
Just there's just, all these things are related, and they're, and.
Is this one of the reasons you guys just made an electrolyte product?
Yeah. Finally put, some sodium in a product. So, yeah.
Is it going to be like a little packets?
It's going to be a tincture, and it's the first product that I've gone ahead and put a flavor in, too. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Call it superhero limeade.
And are you using the same technology where you're making these nanoparticles, but it's salt and potassium and electrolytes? Oh, really?
Yeah, same thing.
So it then could effectively be much more hydrating than like a powdered blend that one might mix in water.
Yeah, or just even a regular liquid that, powder that yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow, dude, cool.
Mm.
Hook a brother up when you get that going. That sounds really cool.
It's tasty too.
Is it?
Which is like something you have to dilute our other products. This one like tastes good. It has that salty, you can sort of feel the electricity on your tongue, and it's nice.
Hey, with the minerals that you guys have, are there any that are preferred to take around the time that you take food? I've heard with copper that it's best to take it with food versus like empty stomach. Is there any preference in your mind to that?
I think there is some truth to that. I mean, technically, the absorption should be really good, but copper has this way of just kind of hurting the stomach of people, because even though with ours you're not really needing the stomach to digest the digestive process, it's getting into the red blood cells really easily without absorption, without having to be fully digested. But there's something about some people, particularly those with low stomach acid, that seems to, they get a little bit of upset stomach. But again, the solution there is just the solution, which is dilute it more, change the solution.
Is there a reason you chose copper sulfite as your
sulfate?
Sulfate?
Yeah. No, not really. Miscible, it worked well in solution. It was stable. So the other aspect of what we do is stability. Outside of our flavored product, you shouldn't have to shake any of our products. They should be nice and stable. And also from a shelf life standpoint, it should be really stable. So it worked there, but forms really don't matter. I'm thinking about making a magnesium product that I'll tell people straight, it'll cost more than our regular upgraded magnesium, but and we have a liquid and a capsule version of that. But we bind the one we have currently with chloride after the fact, after it goes through the process to help stabilize. Your body also needs chloride for stomach acid, HCl for stomach acid. And I find people do well with that. I chose that because virtually everyone would benefit from having more stomach acid, lower pH stomach acid. Usually it's like between 1 and 3. You want to get lower, closer to that 1, I find. So that when you eat that, let's say you eat a steak, or there's really just about anything out there, or, you ingest some bacteria and viruses and things, your body will just, take care of that easier. But no, the forms really aren't important. I'm thinking about just instead of trying to educate, not everyone's going to hear a podcast, for example, and they're going to go, oh, well, I think I need this form of magnesium or that. And with the old absorption technology, maybe that's true, but with ours, it's not, in the same way that if you get magnesium from food, by the time your body ends up breaking it down, we know, obviously, because we're functioning, that it used it for our brain and our heart and our muscles, so you don't need like malate for one and threonate for another and all that stuff. So,
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, so yours just one type of magnesium does it because it's so easy to absorb,
right?
And then your body just does with it what it wants.
Just the same way it would with food, just easier to absorb.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. What a trip, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool stuff. There was one other thing I was gonna ask you. God damn it! I didn't have a pen to write it down.
Man, these are great questions though. Like, this is such a mind dump for people. Like, this is years and years of study that we've gone over, and like just all the decision matrices to get to this point to have some good answers.
Well, I'm getting to the
I would have loved to hear this like 12 years ago. That's for sure.
Yeah, me too, bro. Like, think of how much money I would have saved on supplements just because I was mineral deficient and was trying to fix it with all this other shit. It's actually annoying to think about, like, not just how much money I've spent, but just, just all the different things that I've tried. And then I feel like interviewing you and some of the stuff I've been listening to, I'm getting a little closer to the mark of my aha moment of going, oh, it's all in the minerals.
Yeah.
Because whether you're talking about, like you said, thyroid function, hormones, detoxing metals, like all these things we kind of from a functional medicine standpoint, come at this with all of these fixes, thinking, well, we're going for the root cause, which is kind of the underlying principle of functional medicine. Let's test everything and then give you supplements instead of pharmaceuticals, basically to fix what's wrong. But underneath that, seems like a lot of the stuff could be fixed by just not taking minerals, but balancing. And with the testing, what I'm getting is we can actually look at how these things are interacting and not having a mechanistic sort of reductionist approach to, well, I'm low in that, take more of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So,
an order and sequence of priority of things too, right? Which is like more than we can teach here, but we've already gone in the direction of that for sure. And it's a lot of value for people on this. This is kind of stuff that you're going to want to remember for the rest of your life. It's foundational in the way that, like, the knowledge is foundational in the way that the elements themselves are truly foundational, right? And just from a equation standpoint, you have to have. Yeah, I think it's really certainly essential would be the word.
Last question for you. I mentioned this word earlier, and I never really understood what it meant, but there are these brands that sell liquid mineral formulas that they call it Ionic. And I always thought, oh, that's better because it's not in a pill or like a tablet or a capsule, so maybe it's better absorbed. What's the difference between those ionic minerals, or what sometimes they're called trace minerals, these kind of liquids, versus what you're doing with your nano baby tiny little puny minerals that get in your cell?
Sure. Yeah. Well, Ionic I think is a great place to start, and Ionic really means like charged and in water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think it's a good place to start for sure. But ultimately can be improved on. So yeah.
Right. So in the hierarchy of minerals, you have like the powders that are turned into pills. Then you have these suspended ionic minerals. And then you have what, of course, you think are the most awesome,
I mean,
which is the upgraded formulas.
Totally.
And I'm not faulting you for that, dude.
Totally.
I feel great on your stuff.
Sure.
That's why
Thanks.
I think I'm getting so, I don't know, just kind of really obsessed with the mineral thing right now because I feel freaking awesome. Like a couple days ago, I texted you, and sometimes I put your copper in, so I'll put it in like a coffee or a smoothie or whatever, like water, whatever's around. I'll just put a couple of squirts. But the other day I wanted to do an experiment, and I did.
This will ruin your coffee. I think Luke.
The
is
copper will.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed it.
Okay, good.
I haven't noticed it,
right,
honestly.
cool.
But I put Shilajit in my coffee.
I was gonna say, like,
all kinds of nasty stuff.
You've
like,
acclimated yourself.
Today I wanted like a pure coffee because
Sure.
Allison bought me this incredible coffee from Peru.
It's good to know you can't taste it though. I just haven't tried.
No,
it.
I don't think the magnesium. Your guys' magnesium is gnarly strong, but the copper I don't even think has a taste. The iodine I just put right under my tongue. It barely has any flavor.
Right.
But anyway,
and I like that because you're not ingesting any chloride or chlorine rather.
Right.
You're not ingesting chlorine or fluoride in that. If you're doing it directly with the iodine, like I was saying earlier, and the magnesium, you just want to dilute until you can't taste it, and then it's fine.
Right.
So,
right.
Or you're gonna put in something with a flavor or something.
Right.
On top of it.
Yes.
Like if you're doing pre-work or post-workout, or So.
Yeah. Well, dude, kudos, man. Thank you for making awesome stuff. Oh, I know I was going to tell you the other day. See, I took my magnesium today. My brain's working.
Hell yeah.
When I was
it's
texting,
good for memory. Yeah.
What I was texting you was the day that I did methylene blue sublingual.
Yeah.
Which it's funny. I don't think you can talk about methylene blue on social media anymore.
Yeah.
Because it works for whatever the thing is.
Sure.
But anyway, I did a big dropper, like a mega dose of liquid liposomal methylene blue under my tongue, and I thought, I heard something about copper and just metals and methylene blue have this emerging synergistic relationship people are becoming aware of. So I did like 2 droppers of your copper, and then I just let it sit under my tongue for a while. And after that, I took a huge ball of Shilajit, like I don't know, a mega dose of Shilajit, which has bioavailable copper and all these other incredible minerals in it as well, actually. Yeah. And dude, I had so much energy. I was buzzing. I felt incredible. So I don't know what it is exactly yet. I'm going to figure it out. But the copper with methylene blue is bananas.
Wow.
Energy city.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
copper is what I know for sure is that copper is needed for producing ATP.
Ah,
Yeah.
right.
So we need that. And, if you've been supplementing some of our zinc or just zinc in general for a while now, maybe you're trending a little bit low in copper, and now, boom, here you go. And it's all in once, and and you're maybe fasting and methylene blue and all these other things.
That's very interesting with the
It's cool.
methylene blue, because the methylene blue, of course, does all kinds of things, but one of the main things it does is makes it really easy for your mitochondria to produce ATP. I don't know if you know this. It's really interesting, and I might butcher it scientifically, but the general idea is that it goes through the electron transport chain and allows your mitochondria to make ATP without using NAD. It doesn't, or oxygen.
Yeah.
It takes the place of oxygen to create energy. That's crazy.
I did not know that.
Yeah, dude.
I've not looked into.
Yeah.
I've done it like twice. I think maybe you gave me a gum at one point. Someone else did too. Even my assistant had some. And anyway, I tried it, and you feel it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, and somebody smart out there listening will figure this out or already knows it, but since the mitochondria need copper, bioavailable copper, to make ATP, and I'm putting copper and methylene blue together right into the bloodstream, the mitochondria must be going, hell yeah, what's happening? They have like all the raw materials they need to just produce a shit ton of ATP.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
putting it, that is one supplement, though. When I take it, I always dilute it because, man, I find that it does have an aftertaste.
The copper?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
But not everyone seems to have that reaction,
I don't. It doesn't bother me.
See?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting. One other thing about minerals is, they're also important for skin, for health. And interestingly, I think this is a viewpoint that is not understood, but especially as we age, having good skin, one of the way to have good skin is to have good bone structure underneath the skin. And you need good, plenty of minerals to have good, consistently smooth bones. Imagine bones are porous because they're missing a lot, and they've been, pulling the body's been pulling to make the blood nice and, rich. And then, the skin,
That's very interesting.
It's
so
really
think about
fascinating,
the
right?
bones in your skull,
Right.
in your face specifically.
Exactly.
Right? If they're becoming degraded or sloping or becoming thinner or worn down or whatever, they're the scaffolding that's really making your face.
Yes.
Right? That the muscles in your skin are all ligaments and all these things are kind of hanging on to that. That's trippy, dude.
Yeah.
That's trippy, because I was just think, minerals, I'm sure you need them to build collagen or something like that. But that's interesting from the your actual bone structure of the anti-aging, or at least cosmetically anti-aging.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Elements in skin too. So
yeah,
it's cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just another little thought I had as you're saying something there.
Cool shit. Well, that's the purpose of this show, is to discuss thoughts. Well, thank you. My friend.
This is fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. Much appreciated. I want to remind everyone listening for the show notes, because we dropped a lot of, a density here, I think, today, for lack of a better word. You can find them at lukestory.com/Barton, Barton. So anything we talked about, we'll link in the show notes for those of you. And that'll also be in the transcripts as well, which you can find on the show page, lukestory.com/Barton. And then again, I want to remind you, those of you that want to check out the upgraded formulas, minerals, and the hair test with the consultation. I'm not just saying this because he's here, but I feel really good on this stuff, dude. So thank you for creating this, and thank you for your discount. The code's Luke, you guys, upgradedformulas.com, and they're affordable. This isn't like some of the other stuff I support, promote, use myself is crazy expensive and a bit more novel, but this, to get on a monthly kind of mineral regimen is not very expensive. So
yeah, I agree. And I've thought about that as I've priced our products, is that ultimately, I want people to be able to afford to do this and test frequently. And I mean, that's how you get this virtuous cycle, this spiral upward, is you're testing, you're improving your action, you're, with supplements that really work, and then you're testing again, and, and it's essential. We also donate to charity water too. That's something else I really believe in, because I feel like they're solving a root cause problem too. Clean water.
Yeah.
I know I'm a huge fan of water in general.
Yeah.
Having really good quality.
Yeah. Particularly
having it. It's very important.
Yeah, no shit. Well, I did my water solo cast the other day. I made a point to put in the manuscript, like, the elephant in the room here, I'm going to acknowledge the fact that many people don't have any water to drink that's, potable, and clean. So, when I'm talking about, the best spring water, I understand there's a certain level of privilege, some of it earned, some of it inherent. But yeah, the water cause is really important. So thank you for doing that.
It's huge, yeah. And I feel the same way. I mean, I try to optimize my water, and the more I do, the more I think about people that have none, right? As you do too, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's people in
700 million people, roughly.
There's people in some countries that would be stoked to be drinking Austin tap water.
Oh my
you
God.
Know what I mean?
Like so stoked.
Yeah, so
just won the lottery. Like more like they would rejoice more for sure than if you won the lottery, or anyone listening to this won the lottery.
With that charity that you support, do they drill wells for people?
They drill wells, and what I like about them is it's like an intelligent business. They thought about like what keeps people from not donating, which is they're not sure where their money's going, so they take care of that. They say we're having one event every year, and we cover all of our overhead. So everything you donate goes to the actual wells, and then we show you geotagged locations, the well you helped drill.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, things
That's
like
dope.
that. So
I've always wondered that too, with giving away. Yeah. Everyone, I think, that is, I don't know, a happy, healthy person is altruistic in some way. But yeah, you get these things in the mail like, donate to help support, this kid, and it'll feed him this many meals a month for $10. And you're like, I'll do that. But is that actually happening?
Right.
Or are we better off just, next time someone hits me up at the gas station, give them $20. Here, man, get something to eat,
Yeah, I think if you're listening to this and you're putting together a charity, or you're part of a charity, like look at their model, because they've done it as well as anyone I've ever seen. It's just really savvy, really smart. They're using technology in the right way. So.
Right on. All right. So when people go spend their money at upgradedformulas.com, some of it's going to that cause. That's awesome. Brother.
Yeah. Hopefully this year we'll drill at least one well with them too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then more to come. So. Yeah.
Right on, dude.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on social media? I've given your website a plug. Everyone knows they can shop there and get their discount with the code Luke. What about Instagram?
Yeah, social, Instagram, ask Barton, ASK, and then Barton, at Upgraded Formulas, and then on YouTube, Upgraded Formulas.
Cool. Awesome. I got one last question for you, and then we'll get out of here. I think you're probably as starving as I am. I did eat a little bit before I came, thank God, because I was running super late getting over here. Who are 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your life and work that you might share with us?
Just the Tao Te Ching, I think, is a great book. It's one of my favorites. I really like this book by Dr. Watts on minerals. There's another one, Dr. Lawrence, I think, in that area. It's been years since I read that one. And then just a lot of philosophy. I think just accumulating as many perspectives as possible, and sort of choosing a bit and leaving a bit, that feels right, and moving on, and having that approach of going like, I'm still going to ask the question or read the book, even if I feel like I know most of it, and being able to discard if I don't agree with something. I'm not going to let that taint all of it. In the same, So even in the same way that if I don't like a person's personality, possibly if it's not exactly like, a complete jive, then I can still learn from them. I think that's just essential, to find.
That's a healthy way to live, dude.
Yeah,
especially in the world of the health and supplement biohacking industries. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of polarity, and people, I think, have a hard time also changing their mind, right? I mean, I'm learning things all the time. There was a couple of years ago, I took a supplement I thought was good for you. I looked into it, it felt right, and then later on I got more information, was like, I don't think I'm going to take that anymore. You know, it's just, there's always new, exciting, emerging info if you can keep that malleable mind, and the Tao Te Ching would be a great way for people to learn how to be that way, right?
Yeah,
it's like that zoomed out perspective. It's funny that you're into that teaching and you ended up going into minerals, because I feel like minerals are so, it's all about balance. That's the whole thing. And there's this quiet power in minerals, right? They're just kind of subtle in our environment and humble and laying back in the cut, but they really are at the foundation of all life. So that's makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
All right, dude. Well, thank you for sitting down. And for those listening, we're going to come back and we're going to do another conversation, because what I want to do, I'm just a geek like this. I'm waiting for my test results to get in. I had to, obviously supplement with Allison's, but I'm going to get mine, and I'm going to do my consultation. I'm going to take whatever minerals of yours that I'm not, because I'm taking a few already.
Sure.
Thing that sucks, though, since I've already been taking your minerals, now when I do my test, it'll probably be a lot more awesome than it would have been in real life, because I wanted to do a total before and after, but just reality of life didn't allow us to do it that way. But I'm gonna do the analysis, then I'm gonna get on whatever minerals your people recommend, and then I'm gonna do another one after that, and then we'll record again.
Cool.
And we'll go over it and kind of show people some of the things that worked and some of the things that still need work, and I think it'd be a good experience for people to kind of understand how they can go do it for themselves.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it'd be super fun. So thanks for coming, dude.
Yep. Beautiful. It's been a pleasure. Great conversation.
Yeah, we finally got to do it. Every time we hang out, it's like we just talk about kind of life philosophy.
Yeah.
I don't typically like sit around and geek out about this stuff with you. So I'm like, we finally got to do it. I got to extract your knowledge. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Got to get some of yours too. So a lot of fun.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, this is great. So such a pleasure to be on.